This story divided into 2 parts. I will ensure you going to love this series. In a fantasy world filled with magic and monsters, humans have always fought against demonic beasts. Among all the creatures, they hated dragons the most. This hatred drove a group of strong adventurers to the ancient dragon's lair, where they trapped a legendary dragon. As one soldier delivered the killing blow, the dragon wondered why these humans wanted to kill him when he had never harmed them. But his time in this world wasn't over. One day the dragon was reincarnated as a human named Dolan, born to a farming family in a small village. Growing up, he became a capable young man, though he often felt haunted by the memories of his past life as a dragon. He tried to push those thoughts aside, working hard in the fields, since farming was the only way to make a living in his village. Here, kids became adults at just 15, which would have been a relief for many, but it meant Dolan had to fend for himself. One morning, Dolan met up with his less-than-attractive brother, and they went fishing at a nearby river. His brother asked if he was going to check out the swamp the next day, where strange things had been happening, but the village guard was too busy playing games to investigate. Dolan saw this as a chance to test himself and see if he had any hidden talents, or if he was just as useless as his brother. After catching a huge haul of fish, he returned to the village and ran into a girl named Marl and her blonde friend Albert. They were impressed by how many fish he had caught. Dolan thanked Marl for helping him train to face any monsters in the swamp. Albert, in a joking mood, told Dolan to run away if he saw Shrek in the swamp, still bitter about past experiences. Dolan rolled his eyes and headed home, where he salted the fish and hung it out to dry, remembering how their village was on the edge of the kingdom and lacked enough soldiers for protection. Later, a red-haired girl called him for his daily magic training. He went to his teacher's house and used a powerful spell that amazed her. She said his offensive magic was among the best she had ever seen. That evening, as he walked home, he bumped into a wealthy-looking nobleman from the 1800s, dressed in fine clothes. Dolan felt a mix of curiosity and unease as he wondered what this encounter meant for his future. The old village chief introduced a noble lady named Christina to Dolan, reminding him to treat her with respect since she would be staying for a few days. Dolan shook her hand, surprised by her skill, and lingered for a moment, wondering what she was doing here. But with the sun setting, he had to leave and head to his parents' house. Winters in their village were very harsh, so everyone stocked up on food. Dolan wanted to drop off some supplies for his family. When he arrived, they welcomed him warmly, and his mom cooked a fantastic dinner, just like always. After the meal, his dad joked that Dolan should get married quickly, so he could send his wife to the kitchen. Dolan, feeling frustrated, told his dad to stop being a misogynist. He wanted to enjoy being single a bit longer before settling down. The next morning, Dolan left early for the swamp. To his surprise, half the village had come to say goodbye. The strong captain urged him to hurry so he could get back to his PS5, while an elderly woman warned him about danger. Dolan didn't pay much attention to her and picked up some supplies before setting off. After hours of walking through thick forests filled with wild animals, he finally reached the swamp. The water was a horrible green and smelled awful. He dipped his hand in, like a chef checking food, and realized the chemicals were all wrong. That explained why no one could survive there. Before he could figure out what to do, he heard rustling in the leaves. He instinctively grabbed his sword, knowing only a strong monster could survive in such a place. To his shock, a stunning half-snake woman appeared, asking if he was alone. Dolan was confused. These creatures were rare. He told her he was there alone to check on the swamp conditions. The blonde woman suddenly started acting strangely, like she was in a trance. Dolan was confused, but she quickly assured him she wasn't there to fight. Just then, a giant monster appeared behind her, trying to crush her with its huge paws. She screamed for help, and Dolan sprang into action, slashing at the beast's legs just in time. He grabbed her and ran. The monster, made of some gooey material, began to regenerate its leg as they hid behind a giant mushroom. The girl immediately started asking questions, but Dolan told her to be quiet so he could think of a plan. After a moment, the monster moved away, giving them a chance to breathe. "Why was that monster here?" she asked, clearly shaken. Dolan explained that it was an earth elemental that had gone crazy. Despite being a monster herself, she had never seen one like it. He told her this area used to be controlled by the lizard people, who often traded with the village, but had disappeared recently. He suspected this monster was the reason. Dolan recalled an earthquake that had struck the area not long ago and wondered if it had created the monster. He turned to the girl and asked for her name. She said her name was Cell and that she belonged to a breed of monsters known as the llamas. Dolan had heard of them. They were famous for their beauty and magical skills. "Would you like to fight together?" he asked. Cell hesitated, saying she wasn't very confident in her magic and didn't want to embarrass herself. Dolan encouraged her, telling her to just provide backup while he took the lead. Cell agreed, promising to do her best, but unsure if she could trust him, a human she just met. Finally, Dolan gave her the signal, and they both charged at the monster. The beast retaliated, shooting mud pellets at Cell, but Dolan quickly slashed them away. Seizing the moment, Cell began to chant a powerful spell, creating a red magic circle from which a giant snake emerged, wrapping itself around the earth elemental. As the snake squeezed the monster, Cell struggled to maintain the spell. Dolan took this opportunity to close in on the monster, ready to fight alongside her. The monster finally broke the snake spell and lunged at Dolan, but he managed to dodge just in time. Jumping on top of the mud demon, he slashed it in half. Cell was relieved they had won, but the monster's remains splattered all over her, getting her dirty. Dolan rushed over to check if she was hurt and thanked her for helping him defeat the beast. He realized she must be cold and dirty and suggested they find a place to clean up. As night fell, they discovered a small shack where they could rest. While Dolan cooked dinner, Cell, with her striking appearance, asked if he was afraid of her. He replied that she was different from the other llamas he had met. Cell was surprised to hear he had encountered others, explaining that those llamas were more aggressive and wary of humans. Curious, Dolan asked what she was doing near human settlements. Cell shared that she had just turned 17, which meant she was now an adult and needed to find a husband. Dolan was intrigued. Cell explained that all llamas were female and gave birth only to females, so they had to look for husbands from other races. She went on to say that llamas were created when a human woman was cursed for being a TikToker, which made their bodies poisonous, something not many could tolerate. Dolan's mind wandered for a moment, but he snapped back when Cell mentioned that her father was also human. Determined to impress her, Dolan poured some of the soup he had made and offered it to her. Cell eagerly ate and loved it, asking if it was made with milk. He smiled and told her that his mom taught him how to make it, and every winter they would gather around the fire to enjoy it together. Thinking of his family reminded him of his lonely days as the divine dragon, but now he felt better, surrounded by people he trusted. The next morning, they both got ready to leave. Dolan decided he wouldn't act desperate around Cell and wanted to play it cool. He told her he would head back to his village, while she continued her journey south in search of her husband. Dolan smiled, wondering if their paths would cross again on their journeys. For now, though, he decided it was time to leave, as his adventures were just beginning. The next day, Dolan and the redhead, Ari, learned to cook from the old hag, who told them that magical medicine had to be prepared with great care. Even a tiny mistake could be life-threatening. Ari seemed to have a knack for it, getting the recipe right on her first try, while Dolan fumbled and accidentally burned the blue cherry. The old hag warned him that he needed better control if he wanted to keep his girlfriend happy. Dolan apologized, but Ari chimed in, saying he could keep any girl happy, jokingly implying he had something special between his legs. The old hag caught on to their banter, but Dolan ignored it, admitting he struggled with precise recipes. Ari looked a bit upset, but the old woman inspected her potion and declared it perfect, telling Ari she could go out and play. Dolan, meanwhile, thought about how he had never needed medicine as a dragon, but now he struggled with the little details. The old hag reminded him that while he was good at offensive magic, he needed to improve with magical medicine. She advised him to take his time and try different methods to find what worked best for him. Later, Dolan was invited for lunch by Ari's family. As they prayed to the goddess Myral, he realized he hadn't seen her in a long time. After lunch, he hurried home, but the village cowgirl stopped him, offering him some of her milk. Dolan knew it was delicious, but he didn't want to seem desperate. He tried to refuse, but she had already filled a cup. He gulped it down in one go before running to find Albert, who was training some kids to become knights. The kids were excited to show Dolan their progress, but he wasn't interested. He told them to take a break, and suddenly sensed a monster nearby. He didn't mention it to Albert and decided to investigate the forest that night. The presence felt familiar, and as he ventured deeper he spotted a campfire. To his surprise, it was Cell, who he had sensed earlier, and she was enjoying a hot sponge bath. When she saw Dolan staring, she freaked out and nearly fell over. He rushed to her side to catch her, asking what she was doing there. Sel covered herself and told him to stop watching, feeling embarrassed. Dolan, trying to ease the tension, told her she looked beautiful, and that his gaze wouldn't take away from her beauty. She insisted it was embarrassing, and that he should have some shame. But with a confident smile, he replied that all living beings are drawn to beauty, so there was nothing wrong with looking. This earned him a tight slap, and even after covering up, Sel was still upset with him. Dolan still didn't quite understand what he had done wrong, so he changed the subject and asked Sel what she was doing there. She looked sad as she explained that all the men she met on her journey were afraid of her, so she had come back to find him. Even she was scared of humans, but she had worked up the courage to greet them, only to have them run away when they saw her tail. Dolan felt lucky to have Sel back, and said he had been hoping to see her again. Then, an idea struck him. He asked her what she thought about staying with him. Sel freaked out, asking what he meant. Dolan explained that she could live in his village. Sel thought it was impossible because people would be afraid of a monster like her, but Dolan reassured her that they already had demi-humans and beast folk living there, so she would eventually be accepted. He believed that while people might be scared at first, her gentle nature and beauty would win them over quickly. Overjoyed at the thought of being friends with humans, Sel happily agreed to live with Dolan. He said that living with her would make his life more enjoyable, and there would be perks for her too. Sel wondered if he was talking about nighttime exercises, but Dolan had something even better in mind. And here the video ends. If you liked the story, please comment down below and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.